Hello, welcome to Jason Cabin's Experience. I'm your host, Jason Cabinets. Here at Cabinets HR, we recently launched our equity crowdfunding campaign on Refunder. To get more information, go to refunder.com/cabineshr. Our guest today is Jay Lyman. Jay, ready to be great today?
I am ready.
So Jay, a non-library topic, what's some things you do for fun, like hobbies and stuff you do when you're like not at work?
Yeah, I enjoy camping, a lot of things outdoors, kayaking, stand-up paddleboarding, fly fishing, and of course, I like to read as well too.
That would be kind of weird. A librarian doesn't like to read.
Yeah.
So how long have you been kayaking? Kayaking, how you say a word?
Kayaking. I've been kayaking. Boy, I think we got our kayak in about 2013, 2012. Yeah.
So how does it work? Like you're in there and it flips over. What kind of safety? Like you just like that, you got to flip it back over some kind of way. And they train you to do that, or like I can imagine like being like a first time person doing that. You flip over the first time, you're just like ah.
It's pretty scary the first time that flips over. Ours is a lake kayak, and so it's pretty stable, and so it's pretty hard to flip it over.
Is it pretty common for the flip over?
I think with the ones that are like more narrow and the ones that go in. The ones that you'd use to go down white rider rafting, you'd flip over pretty often. But ours is pretty stable and it's wider than those.
So what's the farthest out, the deepest in the water you've been?
We've taken it out in the middle of Lake Washington, which is pretty deep. We've also taken it into, we like to go up to Baker Lake, which is a fun lake, not a super deep lake, but we'll go out and kayak around. In fact, I'm going there this weekend.
Some guess it's pretty not advisable to take it like, in the middle of the Pacific Ocean to do it, right?
Yeah, I probably wouldn't take ours out there. I don't think it would fare well with the like big waves, but Puget Sound might be all right. I think it'd be fine.
And how long have you been paddle boating?
Paddleboarding, we started around 2017. I like to go up to Orcas Island, and they have these gorgeous lakes up there. And so we rented some paddleboards, loved it, and now we have our own paddleboard that we take up there every year. And
I've never done. I always heard like you like really like or like increases your calf muscles.
Yeah, you can really feel it.
Yeah.
And your core too. You can feel that motion. It's surprising because you feel like you're out there on the water, just sort of, paddling leisurely. But when you get back in, you feel that core. And
you like go out for 30 minutes at a time, hour at a time, just go out and paddle how much you want to paddle?
Depends on the day. Mostly like an hour, 30 minutes, come back, and we take it pretty leisurely.
Okay. Anytime you've been on the middle of the lake and you get that kind of severe muscle cramp?
I haven't, but
no? Okay.
But if that happens, you can sit down.
Okay. Yeah. You ever have any instances where like you say like some, not whales, of course, like, like animals come to you and like kind of poke around, like, what is this thing doing here?
We see fish and things out there. Most of the time we're doing the stand-up paddleboarding, we're on a lake, so there's not any like large animals in there. But we definitely see fish and things.
You like taking any photographs when you're doing this?
Sometimes, yeah.
You get some pretty nice photographs.
Yeah. I do like to. That's another hobby that I like is photography. So
any particular photography, like nature or like nighttime or
nature, things of our camping trips. I like to just kind of like photo journal of trips and things that we like to do and things like that.
Okay. So I got to ask, when you go camping, do you roll camp like at the tent and on the ground? Or you like one of those glam campers? They take this big ass RV and go in the middle of the
woods. Mostly tent. Okay. Mostly like we sleep in a tent. Okay. Although as I got older, instead of sleeping in the foam kind of mattress, I do have a little cot that I set up, and it makes that nighttime experience much more comfortable.
So what's the most amount of days you've been camping?
What's that?
What's the most amount of days you've gone camping in a row?
Oh, I'll go for a week.
Okay.
And that's about the longest length. But
any favorite camping spots in the area?
Orcas Island is gorgeous.
Okay.
You have to be. We stay at the state park, and so you have to reserve your campsites ahead of time, 9 months ahead of time, and they're pretty competitive.
9 months. Oh, whoa.
So you got to plan your camping trip way out.
So when you first started camping, like how long did it take for you, like, get used to all the nature, right? I imagine you come the first day, like hear the noise at nighttime. You're like, I'm not saying scared, but okay, what's this noise? What's that noise? How long does it get used to like comfortable
Well,
nature noises?
yeah, well, for me, actually, I grew up camping. So like some of my earliest memories are out in the Pacific Northwest here and some of the gorgeous trails with my father. So for me, kind of I kind of grew up with it, and it never really was, super frightening. I mean, there have been moments where I was like, huh, what's that noise? But I'm not. I'm pretty, comfortable and used to being out in that kind of environment.
Ever have any close encounters, like a bear came by sniffing around, or mountain lion like looking for food, or just pretty much safe all the time?
Yeah, never.
No exciting stories to tell.
Nothing like that kind of was scary or dangerous.
Okay.
I have seen bears and things like that, but they were more afraid of me than I was of it.
And who do you go camping with? Like your family comes with you, friends, or do you go solo sometimes?
Mostly either family or friends. I have maybe a few. Very rarely have I done like kind of solo camping or even overnight kinds of things. But most of the time, I enjoy doing that kind of activity with my family, my wife, my kids, or with friends that enjoy going out and camping and things too.
And what's the coldest you've been out there in? Like freezing temperature, snow all over the ground? Like what's been the coldest you've been?
Yeah, snow.
Okay.
I remember one night we hiked up into the Cascade Mountains up to this lake. And there was a lot of snow, and that was a cold night. The next morning we like packed up quick, got out.
And like, what do you usually do for food? Like, you're fishing in the lake or something. You bring your food with you, like jerky, or how does the food thing work?
Yeah, bring food that you can either make or that's like, just jerky or things that are like, freeze dried or things that are ready to go. I will so pack a lot of snacks and pack things that you can make pretty easily just with camping either on the fire or on a camp stove. I usually bring a camp stove. Yeah, I do fish while I'm out there, but I catch and release. I like to leave the fish there.
Okay. All right. And then, so you're out there camping. Suppose you do go on a 3-day camping trip, right? Like, what do you actually do? Right? You just sit around the campfire telling stories. Like, I mean, I couldn't say like 24 hours a day, you sleep 8 hours a day. I mean, there's just so much you can do, right? Or just a fan of like being alone by yourself, your family, like this, like conversating with them versus not having all the tech stuff around.
Yeah, that's all of that. So like, hang out around the campfire, tell stories, enjoy good food together that we bring along. And sometimes we bring games, like board games and things that we'll play. But more often, it's more like also just sort of go out on a little hike on a trail, go out on the kayak or go on the stand-up paddleboard if there's water nearby. We'll do sometimes we'll just hang out around the fire and just relax and of course reading too. Like I'll bring a good book.
But not a Kindle.
Not a Kindle.
An actual book. An actual book, right?
Usually I bring an actual book, but my wife brings a Kindle. Because why? Because she can read at night very easily, laying there in the bed. So yeah.
So you've been camping for like a few years, right?
Yeah.
So let's suppose someone's listening to this and they went, man, I want to start camping or hiking or being in nature. What advice do you give them? Like what equipment to buy? Like how to get started, like a novice, so to speak.
Yeah, if you're a novice, I think one thing that I would encourage people to do is that they, the camping gear can be expensive. So before you go out and spend your paycheck at REI, you can rent gear that you need from some of the local like equipment stores, and there are equipment outfitters that'll help you out, and do that first, because you don't want to like invest in it and then like, wow, I don't like this, and go and then have to sell all the stuff too. But and then I would select a place that's not too far away, that you can, so that if you do have that experience of it being too cold or whatever, you come home the next day.
So let's suppose someone's going out hiking. I mean, not hiking, but camping by themselves. First time doing it by themselves. What advice do you have with them, like as far as being safe? Like, you need to bring bear spray or like something else with them?
Yeah, I wouldn't bring bear spray on the western side of the Cascades. There's some places, in Alaska where you would definitely want to do that. I haven't done a lot of camping up there in that area. But I think, we are so fortunate to live in such a beautiful area that also, like, there's not a lot of, predators in terms of like other, I've seen in my life, maybe 2 black bear when I was up camping, and that was when I was in a vehicle and they were running away from me. There's not, poisonous snakes like you have other places, so you don't need to worry about all those things. I would say that the biggest thing you got to worry about are like, going at a time of the year and being cognizant of, are there going to be bugs? Are there going to be like, are the mosquitoes heavy and those kind of things? Because that can it's not super dangerous, but it can, impact your experience.
Yeah. So back to the library real fast.
Yeah.
So libraries have been around since the beginning of time, right? Pretty much, right? So actually, I just saw something, right? Not talking about on topic. So the Library of Alexandria, like one of the best libraries ever, right?
Yeah.
And like I said, I make this up, maybe it got destroyed by a fire, right? All this knowledge was lost. I like, how much knowledge was lost with that? Was it everything? Because I heard people said all tech at that time, like all information was lost, right? How true is that or not true?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm not an expert on that in that area, but what I do know is that a lot of things were lost, but there were things that survived as well too from that time frame. As I understand it, but again, I'm not a historian in that area, so I'm not sure.
Okay, is there any like libraries that you want to go visit just for like historical purposes?
Yeah. Some of the libraries in England, some of the libraries in Europe are like just such gorgeous places. I was fortunate to be able to go last year and visit a library in Portugal. That was just, so beautiful. They didn't allow you to take pictures in there. And being a photographer, I was kind of like, oh no, but I got it. I respected it. But really, really gorgeous library in a town called Coimbra, which was the capital city of Portugal before it moved to Lisbon.
Is there something like a national society or international society of library or librarians?
Yeah, there's the American Library Association is a big library association, but there are lots. We have our local Washington Library Association, which is very supportive of libraries in Washington State. And there are other organizations that exist around to support various kinds of work. So I'm sometimes involved in the work of a group called Entralib, entrepreneurship in libraries, and they do at least once a year a conference to support librarians who are doing the similar kind of work that I do.
So when people are kids, whether you're male or female, boy or girl, you want to be like a superhero, maybe a singer, athlete, scientist. Most people don't want to be a librarian when they grow up, right?
Yeah.
So can you explain like how you became like what age or what made you decide like I want to be a librarian as a career?
Yeah. So I always loved books. I was always an avid reader, so that it kind of came naturally to me in that respect. But that decision to become a librarian and to go to library school to become a librarian for me didn't happen until I was in college at Evergreen State College down here in Olympia. I was working on an individual study contract because any faculty member at Evergreen can help a student sign off on a individual study contract that the student designs. And I did this research project that I was working on, and I worked and I had a librarian that I was working with who was mentoring me and was my professor for that course that I built for myself. She was supporting all my research and things, and there was this moment in the quarter where I realized I was less interested in the topic I was researching than I was in the work she was doing. That was the turning point for me because I saw how powerful her skill set was and how she could take something that I was interested in and really embrace that and support me And I had that moment of like, wow, I want to do what she's doing.
So stereotypically, librarians are like, middle-aged, older white ladies, right? Obviously you're a guy, right? How has that affected you, like in your career path, like being like, I'm guessing one of the few guys in the library system?
Yeah.
Or has that changed? Is it more even now?
I think, we work to have a very diverse group of people that work at the library. So I work alongside all kinds of people from different backgrounds and ethnicities and genders and things. And I love that. That's a wonderful part of my work, is that I get to work with a range of people who have different backgrounds and speak different languages, and together we are stronger in our support of community because of that diversity and because of that range of skill sets and backgrounds and things.
And do most librarians like have a associate degree, a bachelor's in library science, master degree? Like, what's the average for that?
Yeah, good question. To become a librarian, you have to have a master's, at least in our area in Seattle and King County. You have to have a master's in library science or an equivalent degree. So it's this, but there are other team members who don't have master's degrees, who do work of various kinds of the library. I don't know if people often realize that for Seattle Public Library, there are 750 employees, and it takes the group of us to do all that work, and we all do different things. But there's librarians, and there's library associates, and there are other people who do tech, people who support us with events and things. So there's a range of kinds of occupations within the library as well.
So Jay, what does one learn when they get a library science degree? Because like library sounds kind of boring science, I'm not, what do you learn? Just how to research, or like, I'm sure there's a lot more to it, right?
Yeah, research is part of it. One of the interesting things, one of my favorite classes when I was at library school at the University of Washington was around how to conduct what we call the reference interview. So in a reference interview, when people come into the library and they ask us questions, and librarians are really good at taking a question and answering it. But one of the things that we study, and one of the things that we learn and talk about, is this coming to an understanding of what people's real question is. They come up to a reference desk and they ask the librarian a question, but often what we realize is that's not the question they really wanted to ask. It's the third question that they ask us that's really starting to get at the core of it. And there's a lot of reasons for that, and I think it's varied, and it can be like each experience can be, quite different. But if you think about it, maybe the person might be asking the question that they think we expect them to ask, or that maybe that's the question that's like top of mind, but the real kind of like gut thing that they're trying to understand is something that's much more nuanced, and maybe they don't even understand how to frame the question that they want to answer. And so through this series of back and forth, we call it the reference interview, we can start to get at that real core question, and then take that and translate that into, well, here is a book or a database or a resource that can help answer that question. And so we're kind of starting to understand what the real information need is, then translate that to resources that exist that can answer it. So that's one of the things that I learned in library school, but it's also one of those things that, even after learning it, you have to do it and do it over and over to get good at it.
So obviously that's a learned skill, a lot of muscle memory. From your experience with other librarians or people in general, how long does it usually take from to really lock down that skill and be really good at it?
I think everybody's different, so some people maybe come to it more quickly. Others take some longer. So for me, probably it was maybe a couple of years of working on the desk before I really got comfortable doing all of that. And even today, I'll be honest, like sometimes people will come up with a question and I'll be like, whoa, how are we going to answer that? Like, hold on, we got to figure out some way to kind of navigate this. And I think about librarians being almost like concierge, in that respect of like, we're helping guide people through that journey. And I will say that when I get one of those like really hard questions, I love it, because those are the things that are going to help challenge me and help me grow and help me be more prepared for that next person that comes and asks another hard question.
So Jay, when someone comes to the library and they don't speak English, like speak Vietnamese or some other different kind of language, how's that work? Like, I'm pretty sure you don't have like a translator to speak all languages in there, right? How do y'all work through that? You like, I don't know, just how does that work?
Yeah. We take each situation as it comes and try to figure out a way around any kind of barriers like that. So in some cases, there might be a team member that speaks that other language. I have a colleague who speaks Spanish and offers business information appointments in that language. We also have other team members that speak, various languages that sometimes can help us either sort of navigate, what is the question, how can we help, and we sometimes have used a language, interpretation line, but things sometimes get lost in that. You have this this third party that's in there, trying to on the fly kind of interpret what's going on, and so, if we can have a team member that speaks that language, member of that community, that's even much better if we can.
At library, do y'all track like, how to say this question correct? Like, y'all track like what percentage of Hispanics come in, what percent of like different languages come in? Like, like for the month of June, 20% of the visitors like spoke Spanish, maybe 5% spoke like Somali or something like that.
It really depends. Some of the services that we run with Library to Business, we do have a survey that we ask people when they when they sign up, and that does ask. It doesn't ask language kinds of questions, but it asks how people identify in different ways, age, some of those demographic characteristics. But some of that stuff, we don't collect because we don't want it to be a barrier either. So I don't have even for those surveys that we do ask when people sign up for an appointment, those are optional. So okay. Some people fill them out, some people don't, and so we have to, and we want that to be optional because we don't want people to.
So libraries, are they like part of the local city government, state government, they're nonprofits? Like, how do they actually run?
Yeah, Seattle Public Library is we are a city entity. We're a department of the city of Seattle. But then, of course, nearby, we have the King County Library System, which has its own structure, Pierce County Library System, Tacoma, so there's different library systems around, and each of them is kind of structured with funding-wise differently. But most of them are, most of the libraries we're talking about, public libraries, are some sort of government entity. Maybe they're a unique entity unto itself or part of a city government.
And but despite that being like a public entity, you see how people like private citizens that donate to the library, like funds and stuff like that. And if that's true, like y'all do like fundraisers to bring this private money in?
Yeah. So for Seattle Public Library, as an example, the library itself, being a government entity, doesn't do fundraising. But there is there are actually two entities. One is the Friends of the Library, and then there is the Seattle Public Library Foundation, both of which do some fundraising type things for the library. The Library Foundation, Seattle Public Library Foundation, does amazing work working with donors, individuals, organizations who are donating money that then goes to help the library in its mission, doing work that it wouldn't otherwise be able to do with the city budget. Friends of the Library similarly does raise money they run like our Friends of the Library gift shop at the Central Library, which has a lovely selection of books and things that the branded materials, but also like interesting locally made products and things. And they also run the Friends of the Library book sale, which is a fundraiser that happens. I think it's on an ongoing basis now. It used to be like kind of twice a year, but I think they do more often now.
So the main library is on, I believe, 4th and Seneca, correct?
Yeah, that's our central library.
And then you have like all these annexes across all these neighborhoods, right?
Yeah, 27 locations across the city of Seattle.
And so like, is that pretty much run the same way? Like, is like a public library, all these annexes, like equal partners, or is this like one big Seattle public library system?
We're all part of that same system, and we all report up to the city librarian, Tom Fay, and we work closely with each other. And my program is a good example of a program that works citywide. So I have team members that are intentionally not at the Central Library, but in Southeast Seattle or Northeast or various parts of the city, so that they are kind of on the ground, making connections, talking to people who are starting and growing businesses in our neighborhoods around the city.
So I got to make sure this is right. So if you're a librarian in the main library and library at the annex, are you considered like equal, or is that considered like more prestigious, or you get a promotion or raise if you go to the main library, or does it matter where you're at? You're a librarian.
We're all colleagues. So and we do different types of work, but we're equals in that regard. That we work alongside each other rather than like them reporting up to us.
All right. So back to college, 2-part question. Like, do most colleges have like library science? And second part is like, is it like considered a top tier library school where like, you know, if you want to go the best library education, you want to go to this college, or they're basically all the same?
Not every school has a library school, or not every college has a library school. In the area, University of Washington has the iSchool, is our the local library school. But there are a lot of other library schools around the country and the world. I mean, I'm a UW alumni, so I'll plug the iSchool, and I think that the work they do is amazing. But there's other libraries, library schools around the country that also have good reputations and things. So I won't say one is better than the other, but of course, my alumni is UW. So
what's the career path for librarians? Like, library internship, associate librarian, like librarian in general, superior, like not superior, but like a senior librarian. Is like a career path to this?
Yeah. So there's you said it right. There are supervising librarians. There are library associates, which could be, so there's a library associate 1, library associate 2, library associate 4, that do different work. And I will say also that some librarians, what we've been talking about so far is public libraries, but then there's this kind of differentiation between public libraries and academic libraries that support people in a educational institution of some sort, like UW or something. And then there are what they call special libraries, which are business libraries. So libraries that exist, in an accounting firm, or in like Microsoft has librarians that are on staff there. So you have these like special libraries, which kind of is a different kind of branch. And then even then, you might have like librarians who went and got the library degree and end up doing work that's more like information science, IT, data science, those kinds of things.
So the librarian, I have to imagine like stuff changes all the time, your field of work, right? So how do you personally keep up to date with everything you need to?
Yeah. One of my first days at the library, a colleague that I was working with you said it. I walked in and I was that like new librarian, and like was talking to a group of others, and and I said, like, teach me, show me how this works. And he said, you just got to take the questions and you'll learn that the patrons are going to teach you everything you need to know from the questions. And so that kind of like, you're like, oh, okay. So, and he was right. At each of those questions that come to each of those little reference interviews teaches me things that I learned that help me be more, ready to help that next person that comes to need help.
Are there any library jobs like consider like more prestigious? Like example, like you've been at Seattle Public Library for a while, presumably you're happy. But suppose I'm guessing the library of Congress called you and say, hey, we have a job for you. Like others, like, would that be more prestigious? Like there's jobs like that out there that people want to do, or is this a librarian is a librarian, you're just doing your job, so to speak?
Yeah, I'm sure that there are, but also you have to kind of consider, for at least for me, like if that opportunity came up, I would probably pass, because I like being, I like where I live, and that whole experience of living in Western Washington, and it's home for me. So, but I think there are like, there are libraries that have some kind of renown, like where you're talking about Library of Congress and things. And I'd also think that sometimes maybe even within a public library system, you're going to have different specialties, like children's librarians and librarians who focus on youth services and family services, business librarians, and like others that help in various ways. And that might not be, the work you would do at like the Library of Congress would probably be very, very different, and might not make that person happy if you're like a children's librarian and like that kind of work.
If nothing else, that would be a hell of a boost to your ego, though, to get a email from the Library of Congress.
Yeah, it would.
Can imagine. Maybe if you happen to maybe it's like get a more pay for your current job, right? Hey, yeah. they want to take me. What are you gonna do about it?
Yeah.
So from your point of view, how is the libraries like kept up with tech, right? I mean, going from the Dewey Decimal System, everything in person, like all the tech we have now, how has the libraries in general done a good job of that, bad job, or just, what's your feelings on that?
Yeah, I think this is something where like we're always trying to catch up in this respect. And just when you think you're caught up, something else happens, and then you're like having to like embrace that next step of technology. For my work with supporting businesses, it's a good example where libraries have been supporting, or I should say, Seattle Public Library has been supporting people starting and growing small businesses in Seattle for a very long time, since like the library's inception in the 1800s. So we have this long tradition of the people who are getting support through the library system. And that the technology needed to support that looked very different, where it was print technology in the earlier days than now, where like we're running to databases and things that of that nature that help people, whereas we're able to do it with more directories and print kinds of things back in the day. So we not only needed to in the around 2000, we not only needed to upgrade our tool set, we also needed to upgrade how we did the work that we do supporting entrepreneurs. And one of those things that we did actually came from some funding we were talking about through the Seattle Public Library Foundation, gave the library some funding to explore services for entrepreneurs and nonprofits, and to talk about or to figure out like, how can we better meet this need that we know we're hearing from our community. So myself and a group of other librarians embarked on a little bit of a research project, but also investigation and of like, here's what we do now for this group, and here's what we think we'd like to do. And so as a result of that, we launched this library to business program that helps people. And there's a lot of technology that goes into that, and a lot of differences that in how we've done our work in all of that too.
And I'm sure this isn't a challenge. I'm sure I've done this before. Like, but how do you handle, like, customer one comes up and this feels like very tech savvy, right? Cloud-based, everything's, real tech advanced, like, off to the next level. Next person comes and they're like, paint the same like 1950s, right? Everything black or white. Where's the due decimal system at? Like, how do you take care of these customers like on both extremes?
Yeah. So I think that's something we're really good at. Where when we have that person in front of us, it's that's either like one extreme, like super tech savvy, and they're building something that's tech based, and maybe we don't understand it, and we're trying to figure it out as we go. Or that person who really is, starting something and they don't have all of those tech skills. Really like trying to help meet them where they are, and being that, like we mentioned earlier, that concierge. I think that's something that we can do really well because with that perspective, we're sort of, it's not no one size fits all. We're able to, really kind of think about, and at the end of the day, what are those needs that are going to be helped, and the answer, might be very different for one person, even if they're both like starting a restaurant. The answer might be very, very different, and the resources we run to and we help with will be different.
And I'm guessing that's the skill of asking the question to get to the question that actually comes through, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
So when you hire like a new librarian, right? I'm presuming they have a degree, so you can presume they know the basic library stuff. But what do y'all do to make sure they are actually like good at customer service skills? Because you're a customer service based organization, right? So you have to take care of customers. How do you make sure they're like actually doing that correctly, or at least to your standards at the Seattle Public Library?
Yeah. I mean, we do a lot of mentorship and shadowing and on the job training, and I think another big thing that we do really well is working alongside each other, in that. So we'll have somebody who we were talking about, like, those librarians that are in a branch, a neighborhood branch. They go, they have certain expertise, and they work alongside us at the central library, and we work together to learn from each other. And so we're able to support each other in the work, so it's less about like how, it's more about like helping somebody build their skill sets and in the work and in the moment. So providing that support system that allows me, when a colleague gets a really tough question, having a system in place where they can connect with me and other colleagues to really get some help, and we all learn from that in the process.
So research, has the basic aspect of research changed any, or like if someone's a great researcher in 1975, they could be a great researcher now, or is like tech changed how people research?
I think somebody that knew how to research in 1975 would have as long as they embraced the technology, they'd have a pretty easy job of applying some of the similar skill sets to the work, but the how is super different. And I say this because I had the experience of coming to the library in about 2009. And I got to work alongside business librarians who'd been doing that for the 30 years before that. Like they had been literally helping small businesses start and grow through that period. The tools they used were very different, but some of those strategies and skill sets that I learned from them, I apply in my work today, where things like understanding NAICS codes, so like what is the industry code for the industry? If I can understand that, then I can do a better job of finding more information about this, what's going on in the industry. So they taught me some of those kinds of things. Another thing that another example that I hear in my head over and over again is when I find a really hard question, try to understand what's the trade association for the industry. or multiple trade associations for the industry, because they might be out there doing the original research and producing some of the data that goes into some of these expensive reports that the library might not have or something. So that I hear that over and over in my head, and I learned that from a librarian who had been doing research for a long time.
So Jay, I know like you help a lot of people with business market research. Can you explain how you help them and how you help them? What exactly is business market research?
Yeah, sure. So when I try to break down market research into three categories, three questions that people ask, and those three questions help me when I'm stuck, and they also help that entrepreneur when they maybe don't know quite how to approach market research. We often find someone who will come to us doing market research, but they are kind of like, I don't know where to start. And so those three questions are: who is my competition? That's the least important of them, usually. Who is my customer? That's the most important of them, usually. And what are the trends happening in my market? Is this market growing? Is it shrinking? Is it how much do other companies in this industry spend on advertising as a percentage of sales? Like all those kind of statistical types of data.
So when you do help someone out, how do you handle this? Obviously you're not going to do the work for them. You point them the right tools. What if someone's like goes back, no, I want you to do this for me. I need help, more help. How you it's like, no, customer, I still need the tools. This is all I can do for you, without being a jerk, whatever.
Yeah. So we try to help people as much as we can. We think about those technology barriers if there are some of those too. So if somebody is having a tough time getting into a database and doing the search, we will help them with that and help deliver that report. It is up to them to go through that and pull out the things that are important. And if somebody pushes back on that, I try to kindly point out that they don't probably, it's not my perspective, and I don't know all of the stuff about what they're trying to do. So it's going to help them to go through that process themselves. And a similar kind of scenario is, sometimes I hear people who are really going to go out and hire somebody to do the market research or to write the report, for them, write their not report, but their business plan. And there's so much that gets missed in the process, because building a business plan is planning. And if you're not doing the planning and you're having somebody else do it, how do you know that you're having it done right? And it's your business. And, if you're not doing the planning, then they might get it wrong. So there's no one way to do it. It really is a process, not just a tick in the box, and I think that's something that we try to help people understand. And then usually when they understand that, of like, oh, wait, this is going to affect how my business runs in the future, then the perspective changes. And sometimes I share examples and stories of other people who have had epiphanies doing the market research, and that sometimes can help them understand, like, oh, wait, I'm going to miss out if I don't do this myself, because there might be something that pops up that I know I want to do, but Jay doesn't know anything about that, because yeah.
So Jay, what other ways do y'all support entrepreneurs at the public library?
Yeah, workshops are another way, or events and things where we try to help people build up their business skill sets. Sometimes those are more kind of connection kind of events where they're connecting with others in the community that help them start and grow businesses. Other times it's more kind of a one-to-many kind of learning event where you're, a workshop of some sort where we're learning about how to build a business website, or we're learning how to market the business, or those kinds of things. And so those are some kind of workshop type things. We also have right after the COVID closures, we started to hear a lot of legal questions that people had that were legal in nature, and we didn't have a resource to be able to help them with that. So we worked with University of Washington Law School, which the School of Law, and developed a set of legal consultation and legal consults where people can meet with an attorney for 30 minutes and get questions answered from that attorney. They don't form an attorney-client relationship, so the attorney's not going to do work for them, but they can sit down with this expert in intellectual property law or expert in corporate law and ask those questions that they have about how that kind of law works. Super powerful. And so we started doing it as part of what we were doing during COVID and helping support people, and we never looked back. We continued to do them. There's some this afternoon.
And do you have like a partnership like the University of Washington Libraries or any local college libraries?
Yeah, that is done in partnership with not the University of Washington Library, but the School of Law, but and also with the Seattle Office of Economic Development is a partner on that project as well.
So for yourself, what's your own personal career goals? Like, you want to become like the head librarian, Library of Congress like you talked before, or like what's your like career goal for yourself?
I'm pretty happy where I'm at right now.
Okay.
Yeah. I like the work. I like the what I'm doing. I like the how. So I'm pretty happy in the specific role that I'm in right now.
I have to imagine you to meet some very interesting people too.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. That's another part of my work that I love. I
can't imagine not one day's the same, is it? I mean,
never. Always different.
Yes. So the library is a public institution, right? People can come in whenever they want to. Like, can suppose someone's been like for like 8 hours. You come and say, hey, you've been here too long, or is like as long as like safe, quiet, they can stay as long as they want to. How's that work?
Yeah, they can stay as long as they want. We are free and open to all. And so if somebody wants to stay there, walk in when we open and leave when we close, that is encouraged.
And of course, no library is supposed to be quiet, but is there like a minimal noise level you allow? Like, if people have a quiet conversation, as long as they're not yelling, how does that work? Is that each individual librarian's decision to decide what's too loud?
Yeah, it depends on the space, and what's going on in the space. Like we like at the Central Library, we have a lot of spaces where totally appropriate to engage in conversation and to talk, and we have things happening around, and then we have a space up in our reading room up on the top floor where the expectation is that people are there engaged in quiet study. So we want the noise level to be not distracting up in that area, where it would be very different downstairs. And I will acknowledge that sometimes, in the course of my work, I might be the loudest person in the room, because let's face it, like, we're talking, we're verbalizing, but to do the work we need to do, we need to sometimes, make some noise, and that's okay. And so sometimes I remind people that, like, I'm sometimes the loudest guy in the room.
So you might not know this, but there's something shown like on like the average number of customers y'all get per day.
I don't know per day right offhand. I know that pre-COVID numbers for the Central Library, like yearly, it was between 1.5 million to 2 million people would walk through the door every year.
Okay.
So that's the scale. And I think we're back in a similar kind of numbers, maybe not quite to the level where we were before. But I'll tell you, like, when I walk in there this afternoon, it's pretty vibrant, Yeah.
A library should be vibrant,
It should, yeah.
You always get the stereotypical of a library, the ladies like be quiet. It was like leaves. Like, things should be vibrant, to an extent, of course.
Yeah, to an extent.
So the library, y'all serve many different people, right? I know you have like a lot of times you have like elementary school kids coming through for like tours and stuff. And the library is like what, 11 floors, right?
10 floors are open to the public, and then we have 2 floors. All right, nine floors are open to the public, and then 2 floors that are staff areas.
So with all this open space, different floors, different people coming in, kids coming in, how do y'all make sure everyone stays safe? You know, like nothing like bad happens to people in there.
Yeah. So we have our one of the things we do is we have rules of conduct, but that we expect everyone to abide by while we're there, and we expect the library to be a safe space. So if somebody is feeling harassed or something, we encourage them to come to the librarian and let us know what's going on, those kinds of things. So we want people to feel welcome, and we want people to feel safe at the library. We also do have a children's area that's for families and children. So, and at the central library, that's downstairs and off on its own area. So that helps with so that kids can be louder in that space, and people aren't angry about that, and so they can enjoy their time there too. But we have these rules of conduct are kind of touch points of ways that we share the space, is the way that I explain that is that, like, these are how we share this public space.
So I'm making this question up, but like, obviously anyone can go in the library regardless. Hey, well, suppose someone comes in there and like, okay, you look like you're 8 or 9 years old. I see no adults around you. What's going on here? You gotta go talk to the kid. Hey, are you here alone, or are you just okay? It's just another customer for me, and as long as they don't bother anyone, we're good with it. How does that work?
If it's like a young person that's on their own, it depends on whether or not we don't know if mom or dad or an auntie is around the corner. But we try to be aware of the space and what's going on, and if that child comes up to us and is asking us for help, or for indicates that they're lost or something, then we'll try to help. But we don't know if that that young person, but we do try to be aware of the space, and we engage people in conversation around, like, how are you doing today? So that if someone is shy or lost or something like that, that might be a way that we can kindly kind of start to learn that.
And then the other extreme, I suppose someone comes in there, they're kind of elderly, they look like 89 years old. And of course, they're not bothering anyone, but you see they come in every day. They're there for like 8 hours a day, right? You like kind of like go to them and say, hey, you need help with anything? I see you're here all the time. Anything you're looking for? Or you like pretty much like leave them alone?
We'll probably, if there's somebody who's coming into the space all the time, one of our roles is to welcome them. So we're gonna come up and have a smile, ask them if there's anything that they're looking for or need help with today. And if they indicate they want to be left alone, that's fine. Like, we'll back off and not help. But that's our customer service, right? Like, so we want to make sure people feel welcome and get the help that they're needing, whether they're shy about that, or sometimes people don't know what kinds of things we have too. So that conversation can help with that as well.
Would anything trigger y'all to like actually call not the police, like a mental health people, or some other safe organizations, like Child Protective Services, what the case would be, or Elder Protective Services? Like, would anything trigger that?
If there's someone that obviously is in crisis, that we'll and there's something going on, we will at the Central Library and at some from our branches, we might be the first person to respond to that, and if we find that happen, find that somebody who's in some sort of crisis, we do have staff members who focus on social services, for people. We have social workers that are on staff and are help directly, and then help other staff understand how to help as well. And so we'll try to help that person find whatever help that they are looking for, or that they need. And that could look, very different. Maybe it's a health crisis that they're in. If somebody, one of those rules of conduct is if somebody's sleeping in the library, and one of the reasons we have that in there is that we don't know if somebody is having some sort of health crisis, and that's why their head's down on the table. And so we want to be able to respond if that's the case. And then we would, call, to get help. And sometimes an immediate help is needed for that kind of thing.
So during pre-talk, we're talking about, what's tougher in Seattle, to find a public bathroom or public parking, right? I still know, obviously the library is a public place, but I know like a lot of homeless people use it like as a bathroom, they go to shave, and the quest for there's nowhere else for them to do it, right? And I think it's a good thing I'll let them do that, right? But how do you like balance letting them like use the facilities versus them distracting from customer service, distracting from customers? How does that work?
Yeah, we want everybody to come in and be able to use the bathroom and use our buildings and everyone to feel safe, regardless of where or why they're coming to the library. In that shared, like sharing the space, we do want that use to like kind of be use of the facilities
to be reasonable,
yeah. And so we'll help people find other kinds of services where they can take a shower or those kinds of things. And sometimes people don't know where to go to do those kinds of things. And there are places where they can go. And so we want to help them find those services if they need it.
Okay, good. So next, we didn't talk about this in pre-talk, but I got your website up, so I don't know if you want to do like a quick demo of your website and just talk about that.
Sure. Okay. Yeah.
Just tell me where to go to and point that. I'll go there.
Yeah. Go to programs and services. And then go to business and nonprofit. So this is the little landing page that are the programs that I do that support businesses and nonprofits. So we've got a lot of things going on, but this is kind of your one-stop shopping location for that kind of support. If you scroll down to the very bottom, you'll see a little bit up, right where there's tiles a little bit further. Yeah, there where those tiles are. You can see we've got upcoming events. A lot of the events that we have on the immediate horizon are those legal consults I was talking about. Those are all virtual. And we got them kind of planned out. We are working on other events that'll like show up, in this calendar beyond that. But those are some that we have like.
And you try to event like once a day, once a week, or just depend, so to speak.
It depends.
Okay.
We do between in the course of the year, we end up running for like kind of the workshop kinds of things. We end up doing between 60 and 100 of those per year. For these consults, I don't count those in that. We'll end up doing, this year, we'll probably do 60 or so of those kind of event-based, and those will serve around 200 to 400, actually more along the, probably like 300 people will come to those consults.
And do the annexes use the same website, or each annex has their own individual website?
Oh, you mean like the branch libraries? Yeah. They all are represented here on the
okay.
on the library's webpage.
Okay.
This is a system-wide program, so their event, if we did an event like at Beacon Hill or something, it would show up in this set of tiles, because it's business related, but it would also show up on the Beacon Hill page too.
Okay.
So we kind of surface events like that in different places.
And the library is open 7 days a week, or any days y'all closed?
It depends on the location. So if you go up to hours and locations up there, and then go to all locations, I think that's the blue thing at the top. You can see a little map of all the locations.
Nice.
And then and then as you scroll down, then you'll see like the hours and of each branch there too. So it depends on the branch. So you can see some are like open at noon to 8, 10 to 6. But we
I'm guessing different hours based on like number of people that certain branch gets in.
Yes, and our staffing. We try to be open as much as possible, but we also have to think about each one of those locations is we have to have enough staff to stay
people
open.
Do need vacations, life comes up, they get sick, kids get sick, all that stuff happens. Yeah.
Yep. So we have to balance all of those kinds of things. We also have been working our way back from the closures, so we too are impacted in some of the similar ways that people moving taking different jobs and kinds of things, and so we're kind of constantly kind of working our way back up to those hours and things. We've been throughout 2021 and 2022, like adding back hours, because we had to from back, there was 0 for a while. we were some of the first parts of the city to be open. We had certain locations that were open for access to bathrooms and things. But we were also doing kind of on the street checkouts outside, contactless pickup and things too. So we're still working our way back from some of those times.
Is there anything else on the website you want to highlight or go to?
Yeah, go back to the programs and services, and then business and nonprofit. And then on this page, another thing I want to highlight. Scroll down just slightly, and you see those business appointments page.
This one.
Yep. So on this page, for entrepreneurs and nonprofits, this is our one-to-one services booking page. If you click on the business information appointments, this is how you can book an appointment with me or my colleagues.
And for this real fast,
yeah,
like someone gets on the site today, how what is the appointment like today, 2 weeks from now? Like how backlogged are y'all as far as appointments?
It depends. Let's look. Actually, it depends on the day. So like right now, we're looking out. It looks like we're all booked at the moment. This is a very popular service.
Yeah, a lot of people take advantage of it, and they should.
Yeah, but when people find this situation we have today, which I'm not surprised, we've been this is so popular and has actually increased through the summer, which is interesting. I try to make myself available at times that maybe don't work for people in our regular services here, or that in this situation where they're all booked. So in this situation, we would have people, we ask people like write to us. I'll often send people, here's some times that work for me next week or in 2 weeks.
Like you do with this podcast.
Yeah, exactly. And then we'll negotiate a time that works for them, because we know that people sometimes that 2 to 3 hour works well for us, but not for them.
Right now.
Exactly. So I think about this, patron that I worked with, who was working UPS in the holiday season, and so none of those hours worked except for maybe like 7 to 8 p.m. So we negotiated a time, and it worked just fine. So I created an appointment just for him. So
okay, nice.
So we're happy to do that, and we definitely have some of that kind of built in. But this is ideally, like we would have lots of appointments here and people could just click on it and book them there. Go back one page, and I want to show you one other thing here too. So if you go down to the legal consults, a little bit further up, right there. So there.
Right here.
Yep. So this is our page where people can book the corporate law or intellectual property law. Or
so these lawyers, like, how do you find these lawyers? They volunteer their time by the goodwill, or like has kind of partnership with them? How does that work?
Yeah, they are. It's both. They're volunteering their time, and we have a partnership with them to volunteer their time. Something about the law profession is that they they do pro bono work. That's part of the built into the professional ethos. Yes, exactly, of the profession. And so these are attorneys who work for large local corporations or law firms that are helping them offer their time pro bono to do this work. Scroll down just a little bit and I'll show you some of the examples there. So today you can see we have these corporate law ones. All those, even though they've got the little blue thing, like that is a wait list for the but it's not a bad strategy to get on a wait list, because people do drop out. And even in the moment, like my colleague and I will call people who are on the wait list and say, hey, could you come now? But if you scroll forward at the very bottom, just right there, just a little bit higher, you'll see the little two little blue arrows right there. Yeah, scroll forward and you'll get to the next date. So you can see there on September 6th, we have corporate law consultations, and people can register right there for those.
Another popular service y'all provide.
Yeah, very popular. But you can also see September 7th, we got availability, quite a bit of availability for those intellectual property law ones. And those are questions about patent, copyright, or trademark, trade name, those kind of things. Every now and again, about trade secret, secret sauce.
So I want to go to one part here, online resources. Let me actually go back.
Yeah.
Can you talk about data access reference solutions?
Yes, absolutely. I'm glad you're bringing me over to this page, because this is another thing.
So first one, where does this information come from? I'm assuming it comes from the Department of Labor, some kind of where a small business administration or something like that.
Yeah, this particular one, Data Axle, is a directory of companies. So in this case, we have right now at the moment, we have 83 million businesses that are represented in this Data Axle database. And this is a database that, just like the books on the shelf, the library buys and makes available for people to use. So we were talking about like the history and like how I learned to do research, and translated those skills into doing it with databases. This is a really good example of a database.
I know the library card, all this stuff is free, but it's actually very expensive if you bought it by yourself. I mean,
exactly.
Like very, very expensive.
Yes.
And it's free with a library card.
That's right. Yep. So you can do what you just did and log in here with a library card, and you have full access to this database.
So you can walk through with us, like show us how to actually use it the best way.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. And let me back up and answer your question too of where this comes from. And the answer is a little bit like, I'm not sure all of it, not because I haven't asked, but because that's their secret sauce of
it is a lot of information.
And so they're pulling from lots of different databases.
Probably scraping from database and stuff like that. Yeah.
Hundreds. And they also are reaching out directly to businesses to verify information as well. So for those 83 million businesses that are in here, those are, think about it as 83 million moving targets. Each of those companies might, well, not each of them, but like many of those companies are changing locations, being sold,
hiring, firing people, revenue changes.
There's all kinds of changes that are happening. So, and a lot of that information that's kind of that we would like to know about all those changes is proprietary. So, so Data Axle is a database that pulls a lot of that data together, scrubs the data themselves, and produces what they think the universe looks like in terms of U.S. businesses. What happens is sometimes, that is a moving target. And so we find that like we know this company moved already from this location to this location. And 6 months later, it might be then represented in the database. So we have to, take everything we learn from this with a little bit of a grain of salt, but it can be a very powerful database. And for smaller local companies, it's one of the best we can go to.
So what's the use case you've seen people use this for?
Yeah, so go ahead and click the little X of the you're in the right place there. Often and then the US business search up in the upper.
Just right here.
Not that one, but the one over, yes, that one right there. If we click on search there, often people like get to this point and they're like, wow, this is the thing. I jumped straight past this to the advanced search tab right up there at the very top, because I know there's a whole bunch of other filters that we can apply with the advanced search. So one thing I'll point out right here is, see the little green V verified, or right in the center? That is that they have quality checked the results if I select that box. If I want to relax my search a little bit, I can select that unverified business piece, and I'll get more businesses. And everything that's happening over here in the corner is kind of the results of my search in the center. So one of the ways that people use this is to identify, come back to those three questions: who's my competition, or who's my customer in some cases. So if you go to keyword SIC NAICS business type right there, let's do let's go ahead and do like pet store or pet See what comes up there. And then click the little search. It looks like it's going there. It's taking a moment more than it normally does. So there we go. So if you click on pet shops up there, it drops into that box down below. Click update count. And let's see what did that do? Okay, so now we have 48,000 businesses that identify as pet shops. It's one of those NAICS codes. And then if you click on, let's add a geography. Let's add Seattle, so city, state maybe. And then it pops down below, so you could just type in Seattle there. It's hard to see sometimes. And then that's good, probably. Might not like the WA in this case. I don't know. I think you did. Maybe it doesn't like the space after it. There we go. So click on Seattle. You can do both if you want to, or not. And then click update count. Let's see what we get. Let's see. Scroll down to the bottom to see if it's, oh, somehow it's not selected anymore for some reason. Oh,
I just that then yeah.
That's all. Yeah, that's all you need to do. There we go. 157 pet stores in the city limits of Seattle, both verified and unverified. And if I clicked on view results, gives me a nice list of all the pet stores, that executive name, address, all that. So we can really start to understand, maybe we're selling a product and we want to be able to sell that to these pet stores. Maybe we're trying to like compete with them or whatever it might be. One cool feature here, if you click on heat map up at the top, it takes all that data and it puts it on the map. So we had already selected Seattle, so they're all like kind of hovering there. But that could be like, location kind of thing of like, ooh, look, we're missing pet stores here.
It has a sales volume and stuff. That's very good information, I would think.
Yes. Now, be a little bit careful with this particular database and sales volume, because let's take that Lucky Pet company on Aurora. They don't have to tell us that number.
Yeah.
So how did Data Axle get that? They estimate.
Maybe like use tax returns that are public, something like that.
They wouldn't be able to access the tax returns because that would also get to that proprietary nature of this private company. So they wouldn't be able to get into that, but they would be able to look at an algorithm that says, okay, pet stores in Seattle, this area of Seattle, with this many employees are making about this much money. So those are the kinds of things that the algorithm looks at to come up with that, and then they apply it to these.
So I'm gonna click on this one right here.
Sure.
And of course, all this information I take with a grain of salt, right?
Yes.
Okay. Like some more detail than others, like employees, revenue. So I'm just like, so this is a good starting point, like how accurate is this? Maybe it's not accurate at all, but at least it's something to go off, right?
That's right. Yeah. And then I would take this and, jump out. I wouldn't just sort of leave it there. I would start to do my own investigation from this point. Now I know this thing exists or existed. And then I could go and this one I say existed because it is one of the ones that's unverified.
Okay.
So I would even take this with even more of a grain of salt than one that had the little green verified. But it still could be useful. Maybe they moved on Jackson. Maybe there's another one in there too.
We click on one more if we get out of here.
Yeah.
This one right here.
Yeah. Also unverified, so we're not sure. Something in here was updated on April of 2022, and they've been around for about 2 years. So I would probably go out and I would Google search this to see, can I find a website for the company? We could go see, was there an article published in a local publication?
Like cross-reference with different research methods.
Yeah, gives me some different jumping off points.
So one thing I noticed, like most of these have a phone number. I didn't notice any emails on here.
Yes, our subscription doesn't come with the email addresses. Okay. That's something that they then sell. So we buy this from Data Axle or Reference Solutions, and then they have another product that they use to sell email addresses of things.
So with this product, you got to get company either go in their place in person or cold calling them,
or phone, or if I had the website, often these kinds of companies, because it depends on the type of company, but often they're trying to promote their thing so they can make sales. So they'll have an email address on their website sometimes. And so with a little bit of sleuthing, we might be able to turn that around into something that's more actionable.
I use this all the time. It's such a valuable tool for people to use, right? It's like, it's golden.
Yeah. But we chose, pet stores, but we could have chosen roofing companies. We could have searched it by number of employees.
Sales
we could search
volume,
all kinds of ways. So there's lots of different ways to use this and to take these results and kind of action them.
So is there anything else on the website you want to go through?
Yeah, go back up to the business finance fundraising tab at the very top. So you could X out of this page. There we go. Click on the demographics now. This is my favorite database. And I say that because it's my favorite, particularly if people are doing business to consumer. So if households are your customer, demographics now is going to be your best friend. This one too, you could search locally. So if we change that from entire US up there in the top to Seattle, just click on it and then type in Seattle or select it out of the geography list. Either one works. There we go. Yeah, there we got our location set. So now if you go over to demographics over in the middle there, and then right where it says age by sex comparison report, go ahead and click on that, and not that one, but the one next to it. There you go. Click there. And then let's do the complete demographic comparison report, and then click run report. So what this one can do is access census data, is really at the core of what we're looking at right now. But they do also some statistical math to bring it up to 2022 from wherever that starting place was. Census does, American Community Survey, which comes out pretty often, but they also do the decennial census and things. So they're helping us not have to worry about any of that stuff bringing it up to current. So you can see City of Seattle has about 750,000 people. And then if you scroll down, you can see by age, you can see income, like all kinds of like demographic characteristics about who lives in Seattle. So as I'm thinking about like starting or growing a business, I could see, like how many consumers might buy my product, how old are they, all that kind of thing. So go back up to the top and I'll show you a different report. Click on that complete demographic comparison again, right there in the center. You got it. And let's do the apparel comparison, consumer expenditure. Yeah, that one right there. And then click run report. It always takes a minute for it to kind of chug away there. And so now we've changed, we still are talking about Seattle, but now we're looking at how much money do people who live in Seattle, households in Seattle, spend on footwear or women's dresses or sportswear, all these kind of categories. Some of these numbers can look kind of small because they're like, wow, really? Like you can't even buy a woman's sport coat for $2. So you have to think about like, how often do households buy that particular type of thing. And sometimes that can explain why that number is so small. Another thing that I often point out is if you multiply $2 times 355,000, now we have a big number. So if you're trying, so what we're looking at here is like market sizing. So for Seattle, if what I was selling was infant apparel, I'd be able to get a local size of the market for my product.
Okay. This is insane, all this information.
Yeah, there's a lot here. And there's tons of ways to search this database. I find
you almost need a PhD in the DL database, you need a PhD in the data Excel database.
Yeah, exactly. And I'll honestly, it's a good reason to book time with us because we've done this over and over again. Like I said earlier, we share with each other, and we work closely together to make sure all of our business librarians on the team are all familiar with these resources and able to help you in a customized way.
I can just see where customers get information overload using all this stuff.
Yeah. And we pay attention to that too in that conversation. Like if what we just did feels like too much for someone, well, maybe, in that reference interview, when we're talking to them, maybe we don't go through all of that quite yet. Maybe we sort of plant the seed of hey, we do have this kind of information that you might need at some point, but maybe really what they need at that point is really more of a referral to an organization that helps, like SCORE or Business Impact Northwest or Ventures or Small Business Development Centers, who can help them in so many other ways. I've said often that I couldn't do the work that I do at the library without partnerships with other kinds of business development organizations, because it would be kind of it would be lacking. So that other referral out to those organizations might be what they need in that moment. Maybe we want to, instead of going into the details that they're going to need in the business plan, maybe we share an example of a business plan that they can then take with them and read. Maybe we'll print that out for them, and so they can go on their way with an example for their industry. And so we work with them to try to understand what those needs are and try not to overwhelm them too.
Yeah, I remember I found out about you a few years ago when I was doing some work with the Business Impact Northwest.
Yeah,
that's a good partnership you have with them.
They're great.
They are. So next question, there's a lot of, in Seattle, a lot of entrepreneurs, startups, small business going on, starting every day. How do they find out this information, right? Most, unfortunately, people we don't go to the library for this kind of stuff, right? So how do you get the word out about this, right? This word of mouth networking. I'm guessing you don't have no Google ads or Facebook ads or TV commercials, nothing like that, right? So how do you make sure that most people as possible know about all this stuff and use it?
Yeah, we use it a lot of different ways, and I think people come to us in different paths. So sometimes they come to us like you did through Business Impact Northwest. I'm assuming you might have learned about the library's resources through that. So sometimes that partnership kind of works both ways. We'll share with people that Business Impact Northwest exists. They share that the library exists, and those kind of things. I often will do workshops myself at organizations that have an audience that might be interested in the library's resources. Sometimes doing events is a way that people can learn about that too. They'll maybe learn about the event through its kind of promotion, and then discover, oh wait, the library also does these services that I can meet with a librarian for an hour or meet with an attorney for an hour. So it really is a variety of things. We do work closely we have the library has a marketing team, and we will do things with them. They'll help us kind of put things out on social media and things. An example was in February, we worked with an organization called Black-Owned Business Excellence, and we've been working with that organization for quite a few years through COVID, to develop workshops and events and things, and libraries supported that organization in that work. So as part of that, we filmed one of the organizers talking about her work at the library, and then did some of that on Instagram, and I got quite a bit of people following it and people watching it, that learned about the Black-owned Business Excellence event, which was amazing. And then we were also there to help share, hand out business cards so people can learn about these kinds of things that we do. And something I should have said at the beginning, free. So all of this that you see here,
everything's free.
Is free.
There's no charge, no like upcharge, or like everything's free.
That it's all free. Yeah. If you're so use it.
So is there any service the library does not provide now that you wish they would provide in the future?
Yeah, we're always thinking about that, because things are constantly changing. The needs constantly change. And so if I were like, the worst thing that I could do would be to like develop one service or one program and do it over and over again until people got tired of it, and then it's gone. So if we don't like rethink and reimagine and reassess where things, then we're not growing, and we're not responding to the needs that we hear. And libraries work when they respond well, and when they're meeting the needs of their communities. So we're always thinking about that in the core. Just like an entrepreneur is thinking about their customer, we too are thinking about like, what does she need? What are the specifics, and how do we reach her, and all those kind of things.
What do you see the future of libraries being?
I think libraries have been and continue to be learning institutions. So, right there, what we were doing is learning how to research a market. We were also getting some access, and libraries will continue to be access points as well. But at the end of the day, we meet a similar need to what some of these academic institutions and do, and for everyone, and for free. So, I think that, that part of our mission, is important, and knowing that we are there to help people learn whatever that might be, continuing to listen and focus on how those needs change, what they need to learn is changing, and continuing to navigate both the what we offer and how we offer it. I think that's an important thing. And I'll share a quick example too. Before March 2020, I had never done a business information appointment that wasn't in person. I'd done some on phone, so it's not quite true, but they were all in person. In March 2020, we needed to very quickly change that because the entrepreneurs we were seeking to help and that needed the help indeed couldn't come into the library. And so we very quickly shifted all of our business information appointments from in person to online. Now we're starting to hear that shift back to like people asking us for.
Did the library close down like permanently during COVID?
We closed down for a period of time, and then we had certain locations that opened back up as access to bathroom facilities, and then for other, to other collections and things as well. But my work with this took a different path, and so I continued to run these programs virtually. Because we weren't hearing a huge outcry of people wanting for this kind of stuff to like do it in person. Now we're starting to hear a few, but we will still continue to do some of it virtually, because let's face it, sometimes people don't want to fight traffic to come downtown to a location, pay for parking, all that. Yeah. And that was happening before, and so so it's an example of how we had to like quickly react and quickly change, and I'm pretty proud of the fact that it took me 1 week between when we had our last in-person appointment to when we had our first virtual appointment. So yeah, I'm proud of that fact.
Oh, people are allowed to go to the library and like do business meetings, either one-on-one in the library somewhere or over Zoom? Like, is there like a conference room they can like schedule, or like private meeting room they can do?
Yeah, we have meeting rooms where people meet with other people and have conversations about a variety of things. You can book meeting room spaces. We would ask that those not be kind of commercial kinds of things. So you couldn't do like you couldn't sell things while you were in those spaces. But certainly people are having meetings that are related to starting and growing businesses constantly, and they're making connections. And we encourage events like that where that connectivity happens.
Is there a certain month that like you see like more customers coming in, or is it like pretty evenly balanced throughout the year?
Yeah, we do. Usually, and I say this usually because last year was different, and it looks like this year is also shaping up to be different. But usually, September and January are the two times when we start to see things increase, activity around my topic.
December and January?
September and January.
Yeah, okay.
And I have a theory about this, and I think that it relates to, well, one thing that kind of, or two things that play out in those 2 months. One, back to school. So parent has a kid, they go back to school. I can start that small business I've been thinking about. And then New Year's resolution, I'm going to start that business. So I think that does play into it. But I have noticed other little spikes around time away, like after the Thanksgiving holiday, other things. So I think that there's also this moment of, it's like this human psychology where people are, they have this time off from their job, and they're like thinking about this. They're spending some of that time thinking about this idea, this maybe it's a business idea, and they're gonna like run with it. Then they go back to work. They're unhappy. It's jarring. I just came back from vacation. Oh my! And they're like, I'm gonna go start that business. So I think there's some of that happens too. But the difference that the thing that has played out the last 2 years. In the past, summertime was kind of our numbers went down. And that has not happened this year, and didn't happen last year either.
So I would think the numbers in summertime will increase because kids are out of school and the parents taking them to the library.
Maybe, yeah. And so and most of the analogies that I'm talking about, or not an analogy, but the specifics I'm talking about are related to the starting and growing a business or nonprofit.
Okay. There's a difference.
I think numbers around like coming to the library for story times and like other getting books and things, those probably do go up in those summer months too.
Do libraries still like charge like library fines when people don't turn books back in time, or is that an outdated concept?
I am happy to report that we don't do that anymore. And this is Seattle Public Library that doesn't do that anymore. So we realized that was disproportionately affecting people who were of lower income, and so those that could afford to pay a fine paid it off, and then away they went, and others that couldn't afford it really were being disproportionately impacted, and then turned away for they eventually you couldn't check new things out on your card. And we did away with that. I think in 2020 we did away with that. Maybe it was 2019. We'd been working on it before pandemic, but since, people are returning books at the same rate.
So the fine made a difference.
It doesn't make any difference. People still will return the books. If you lose the book, I think you still then would need to pay for it. But that like library fine piece for like late fees is gone.
Let's suppose someone doesn't return a book for whatever reason. Like, do you then like replace that book, or that books are just out of the library circulation, or?
It depends. If it's something that we absolutely need, and like we look at that, the number of people we collect statistics on checkouts for that material. So if the number of things that we checkouts and the demand for that is really high, we'll probably go and reorder it. We aren't really looking at it at that one-to-one kind of thing of like, oh, we're now missing this one. More managing it as like the whole collection. So they're looking at like, okay, what are the things that are the highest, because you can place things on hold. So we'll look at like the holds to number of copies ratio and be able to say like, this thing, people are going to have to wait for quite a while to have this thing. So we look at that popularity of items, but we also would look at the diversity of items in the collection, overall. So
different really, authors, so to speak, different genres.
Yeah, exactly. Genres and like the authors themselves, and like we want the library to be a place where people can get a difference of opinion, look at differences of opinion for whatever reasons they have for that. So we really try to have we have a balanced collection, but also a collection that people do want to use, because at the end of the day, we are we are a city entity, and so taxpayers are paying for these materials. So the idea and it's important for us that people use the materials. So we're not going to buy something that like isn't going to get checked out.
Yeah. So no more fines, but is there a limit? Like suppose I go to the library and I don't return 6 books, 7 books, 8 books. There's a time where you come to me, hey Jason, like this is out of hand, right? I'm not paying no fines, but man, like next time you can't check out any books.
Yeah, I think if you I think if you never return the item, then you're responsible for that. And there's a dollar figure of that you would reach that would say like, you need to return the items or pay for them or something. But until you reach that number, like it's all good.
And you all track stats on like what kind of books are most popular? Is it like history books, social studies books, science books? You have any stats on that?
We do, yeah. Cookbooks.
Cookbook. Why am I not
intensely popular?
Why am I not surprised?
Yeah, in part because they're expensive, they're large. People want to like kind of peruse them, but they also, maybe they want to like look at them and then they buy them or something like that. The business books are actually a high checkout part of the collection as well. Fiction, of course, also, but yeah, we look at kind of what's checking out. There's a group. I don't do that myself, but there's a group of librarians that's what they focus on, is all like looking at the collection, looking at what's checking out and buying new things for the collection. It's quite amazing what they're able to do, and they are a small but mighty group of librarians that make a lot of these decisions around purchasing. But I will say also there is a place on the library where the library's website. So if you are a card holder, you can make suggestions into what you think the library should buy for the collection. Specific books of like, hey, I'd like to read this thing that I heard about. Oh, the library doesn't have it. So you can make a purchase suggestion. They aren't always going to do that, but they look at every single one and look at it very carefully, and often they are able to say yes.
Then how about other libraries? There's always these newspapers, news magazines, New York Times, New York Newsweek magazine, like different ones, economics. How's that work? Like, of course, everyone can go in there and read them, but how do y'all decide which ones that I have subscriptions to?
Yeah, we're also there again. We look at kind of use and what people are. But that's harder for magazines. It's harder to gauge use because people don't check those out. So how do we know like, this one's going to use? Sometimes like use like the if phrase and like, well, this one's clearly gotten a lot of like reading time. But we also are kind of like watching to understand what people are asking us about and trying to stay close to what's happening in the collections. For magazines and newspapers. Over the last few years, we're seeing fewer and fewer of them published. Like we're seeing a lot of them going either all online or that kind of thing. And we do subscribe to electronic magazines and newspapers that you can get to that way too.
What's like the most either like, and of course I'm using the word unique. Unique can be like many different things. What's like the most unique book or most unique book collection y'all have?
Yeah, most unique is our Seattle room. So the Seattle room is it's a special collection, which means that like that is being managed differently than the rest of our collections. And it's a special collection that we're looking at collecting things related to Seattle's history, and also things that are rare and unique. And some of those are donations of things that are coming from people in Seattle, and other times there are things that we've had in our collections, but then realized we needed to move it to the Seattle room so that it can be there 100 years from now, 150 years from now, for people to research our local history in Seattle.
And what's the oldest book y'all have?
I think we have some things from I know we have some periodicals from the 1700s. And I think there is at least one or two items from the 1600s.
And these items, I'm guessing you have to like, if I went there, I'd have to be escorted. You have to like do the stuff for me. Like I just can't go in there and check it out, right?
Right.
A librarian or someone in the library has to like kind of like guide me through and like make sure, nothing happens to it, I guess.
Yeah. Even the gloves,
like
those kind of
9
things.
yards.
It depends on the item. Like there's plenty of things in the Seattle room that you can walk in there when it's open. It has different hours than the central library, so make sure you're coming when it's open. But there are plenty of things in there that you could just, when it's open, walk in, pull it off the shelf and use. But we would, for that entire collection, you use it there. There's scanners if you needed to scan some pages or something. But then there are other, rare and valuable materials that are also part of that collection that aren't out on the shelf, and that you would ask, and then the librarian would come and share, like, here's this item, we want you to use it, but we also want you to be aware of it's fragile.
And do authors ever like get with y'all and say, I'm releasing a new book, I want to do a book signing at the library?
Yeah. We have a team of librarians that do author readings and book signings and things. That's less often in the business realm, but I do have a colleague, or at least a number of colleagues that do that kind of things. Sometimes they're learning about that maybe from the publisher, who there's a popular author who's on a tour. Other times it's a local author who is kind of reaching out to us and saying, hey, I'm doing this thing. We aren't always able to do every one of them. We get more of those pitched to us. Yeah. But we want people to reach out to us, because we if we don't hear it, then of course we wouldn't do it. So we do want to hear. We'd rather hear about it than not.
So the actual building at Seattle Public Library, what year was that built?
The building for the Central Library was it opened in 2004.
So pretty recent,
pretty
big
recent
scheme of things.
Yep. But it's the third library that's been on that location.
What?
Third library.
And so it was like, was this renovations or like complete rebuilds?
For the Central Library, they were complete rebuilds.
So tear down the old one, build this one back up.
Yep. The first one was in the late 1890s, I believe. And maybe it was early 1900, but the second one was 1960, right on the same location. So tore down the old building and built the new one. The first one was a Carnegie Library, so it had a very different look and feel. The second one was a very modern looking building for its time, like 1960s, mid-century modern kind of looking building. And then, of course, we have the iconic Central Library, which also is a modern building. But
is there anything you tell us about the design of it, or like, like the usability, anything like that?
Walk through it. It's amazing. Like there are so many different elements and different. I think the thing that I hear when I take people through that building is, wow, how I didn't understand how big it was from the inside. Like there's just so much space, so much there. And I worked in there for 10 years, and there were places that I discovered after working in the building, like, whoa, I mean, staff areas, but still, I didn't know this existed. Like, just like out of the way corridors that go to where IT was storing some things or whatever it might be. But yeah, it's really, really big.
Is there a place in the library where like there's a rooftop view, or people get a really good view of the city, or where people can sit outside?
There's no place outside. Actually, the old building, the last one had a patio. Apparently, I don't remember the patio myself. I did go into that building when I was younger, but the current one doesn't have any outdoor seating. But the views are all kind of they're views of the city itself around it. Like the reading room upstairs on the 10th floor at the Central Library has lots of wonderful views of the other buildings that are in nearby, which are also architecturally interesting. So that's a lovely place to be on a rainy day when the rain is sort of like coming down, or in the evening when like the lights are coming, but there's not like a commanding like kind of view of the Cascades or the Olympics or something like that. There are also interesting views down inside the building. So like the architect was really interested in spaces that like had views of other spaces. So there are lots of interesting kind of places where you can like look through this screen, and then you're looking down on this part, or you're looking down from level 10 to level 3 kind of internally.
So Jay, this might be something you can answer, but best you can, like, how does the library defend the budget of the city, right? I'm sure some of the library has to go to the city government and say, we want X amount of dollars. How do you defend that money y'all want to use from the city government?
Yeah, the city librarian works with the mayor's office on that budget every year. I'm not privy to all those parts of the conversations that happen between like what that is. But it's I know that it happens, and we watch for it, and we pay close attention. Because we also, that does impact our work, and we want to make sure. So when it comes out, all the staff are very aware of like what that number is, and like how it's different from last year, and because it impacts how we operate, and things. And because of that, also too, we are very fortunate to have those two fundraising arms of the library, which raise other funds to help us do some of the work. Some of the library to business work comes through funds from the Library Foundation. So a big thank you to them for doing that part of it. I also have to mention here, this is a good moment to mention that this, Seattle over the last few years has voted for a levy to support libraries. And so right now, that is a significant amount of our funding too for our operations and things. And so we also thank the voters for that levy, because that helps us do the work that we do.
Is that levy every year, every 2 years, every 3 years?
It's not like an ongoing, we're going to do it this many years, but we currently are on one that I think expires. I can't remember the date it expires, but it's been every 5 to 7 years is usually how those play out. So like, a 5 year, and then we ask, and we honestly, like, we right now that we're operating under a levy, we've got funds from that. But next time we go out, maybe the citizens don't say yes to that. So we have to be prepared, and your libraries are flexible. We try to prepare. Obviously, if we have more, we can do more. But we want to also be prepared if and when that happens, that we don't have as much. And how do we prioritize services and programs? And how do we do that equitably? Is questions that we ask.
As far as like getting a job at the library, do y'all are hired on a pretty regular basis? Is pretty rare, like turnovers, like high, low, like is it rare to get an open library job, or just depends on the other factors?
It depends on the position. I mean, right. So it depends on the position, and depends on other factors. So when a lot of people we had that whole moment in time over after pandemic or 2022, 2021, where a lot of people were like moving around to different positions everywhere. And we certainly were impacted by that. And we were like working really hard to bring in certain, positions into our staff. So it really depends on the time and what's going on in the environment and things. And also like, are people leaving? Are people going, retiring and those kinds of things too.
And so your career page is like a Seattle Public Library career page, or is that underneath the city government career page?
Both.
Okay.
So you can go to using the library, and then there's a library's careers thing, and you can find all the postings there. Okay. Or you could go to the City of Seattle's page. It actually links out to the postings there.
Okay. So let's suppose there's someone out there, either they've never used a library, which would be like amazing, or they haven't used a library in like maybe 5-10 years. What would you say this person convinced them to start using your library, any other library again?
I think there's moments in people's lives where they kind of realize the library exists and realize they have a need for that library. Starting a business, lead for the services that the library offers. Starting a business or a nonprofit is one of those moments where people are like, oh, okay. Oh yeah, I forgot. I should get a library card because they've got these things. When you have a kid, we were talking about like having, like coming to the library with your child to check out materials. That's another moment. Careers, needing to look for a job, looking for like help on what is not just a job search, but like goes into my resume examples, those kinds of things. Retirement, genealogy, like there are these moments in time where people are like, you turn to libraries, and I think each of those are important, and that's where we think about those moments and provide resources in those ways.
So Jay, is there anything I didn't ask you to want to talk about, or anything else you want to talk about that we haven't covered?
I just let me think about that for a moment. Like, so I think we've talked about a lot of the library to business services and programs, the partners that we work with, the tools. I think we've covered a lot. We've covered it really well.
We did. So Jay, can you give us your social media links or the library's social media so people reach out to you or anyone in the library in general?
Yeah. So go to spl.org, and if you just scroll down to the bottom.
Down the bottom.
Yep. You'll see those social media right there. And those are the best ways to connect with us on socials. And then that for business services, that programs and services, and then business and nonprofit.
Okay. So Jay, can you give us any advice on anything you want to cover? Advice, wisdom, or anything?
Let's see. Advice. We get a short time here. Take advantage of it and enjoy yourselves.
Thanks, Jay. Jay, thanks for being here today. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate it too. Thank you.
And to our listeners, thank you for your time as well. Remember to be great every day.